General Upendra Dwivedi, PVSM, AVSM, Chief of Army Staff, Mr. Nikhil Sawhney, immediate past President AIMA and Vice Chairman and Managing Director, Dwivedi Turbines Limited, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you once again, and a warm welcome to AIMA's 52nd National Management Convention. Thank you for being here with us, physically, in person, or joining us virtually from across the globe. It's an honor for me to welcome General Upendra Dwivedi, PVSM, AVSM, Chief of Army Staff, to AIMA's National Management Convention. Today, he joins us to speak on cross-domain hybrid leadership, essential for national growth and security, a theme that reflects the Indian Army's expanding role, not just in safeguarding our borders, but in driving economic growth, technological innovation, and humanitarian leadership. We look forward to his insights on indigenization and strategic investment that exemplify the Indian Army's evolving mandate. AIMA has always cherished its relationship with the armed forces, not just in spirit, but through meaningful collaboration. Our partnership with the College of Defense Management in Hyderabad is one such example where we contribute to the leadership development of India's officers. Thank you once again for joining us, General Dwivedi. It's great to have you with us. Nikhil, it's wonderful to have you with us this morning at the first session of the 52nd National Management Convention. Thank you so much for chairing this session and for your continued guidance to AIMA. Your support has been invaluable, and we're delighted to have you with us for this event. I'm also happy to see so many of AIMA's past presidents, council members, distinguished friends, and LMA leaders in the audience. Your presence adds depth and continuity to this gathering. For over 5 decades, the National Management Convention has been a space for India's management leaders to come together and reflect on issues that matter most. This year, we meet at a time when the world is grappling with extraordinary disruption. The multilateral trading system is fraying, protectionism is rising, trade boycotts, export restrictions, and geopolitical pressures are reshaping the global business landscape. In this fog of uncertainty, questions loom large over India's trade, security, and economic trajectory. But there is also promise. As the words of Sun Tzu remind us, in the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. India stands at a unique inflection point where resilience, strategic clarity, and bold leadership can turn global turbulence into national advantage. India's economic growth has long been its global calling card, but to meet our rising expectations and aspirations, we need to accelerate that growth. That means boosting domestic production, expanding exports, and increasing our share of the global economy into double digits over the next couple of decades. It's an ambitious goal, but one that's within reach if we build the right capabilities and partnerships. The recent turbulence in our relationship with the US is a reminder that India must strengthen its leverage, especially in trade, technology, and security. We must become indispensable to global investors and innovators, and not just by being a large market, but by being the easiest place to do business and the best place to create and scale new ideas. Michael Porter said, strategy is about making choices, trade-offs. It's about deliberately choosing to be different. So should India's path forward be defined by bold choices, ones that set us apart, not just catch us up. Security, of course, remains a critical concern. Our neighborhood is complex and unpredictable. India must continue to modernize its armed forces, not just to defend its borders, but to ensure strategic advantage. And as defense spending rises, we must turn that investment into economic opportunity by reducing import dependence and building a robust domestic industrial ecosystem. Over the next 2 days, we'll hear from some of the finest minds across government, the armed forces, science and technology, green innovation, academia, business, and the arts. Together, we'll explore the many dimensions of a theme for the National Management Convention, which is global trends and future strategies, resilience and adaptability in a changing world. We'll also take time to celebrate excellence in Indian management, honoring leaders and organizations that exemplify vision, innovation, and impact. This convention is being live streamed across AIMA's social media platforms, and we are delighted to have a global audience tuning in. I hope you find this convention enriching and it sparks ideas and insights you can take back to your own leadership journeys. Thank you once again for joining us for our annual Festival of Management. With these words, I'm pleased to hand over the session to Mr. Nikhil Sawhney. Thank you.
General Upendra Dwivedi, PVSM, AVSM, Chief of Army Staff, Rekha, Director General of AIMA, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you to the 52nd National Management Convention of the All India Management Association. As Rekha had said, the NMC is a celebration of Indian management and a crucible of leadership ideas. It is a great achievement for this convention to remain the go-to platform for more than half a century for refreshing knowledge and learning from the best. We are privileged to have India's Chief of Army Staff, General Upendra Dwivedi, PVSM, AVSM, as our first keynote speaker this morning. There could be no one more fitting at this time to have address us at this Management and Leadership Convention, especially in the current situation that we find ourselves in. General Dwivedi, it's an honor to have you, and many thanks for agreeing to address AIMA's National Convention. You are leading a transformation of the Indian Army, and we can learn a lot from your leadership style and strategies, especially on cross-domain hybrid leadership. Your operational and leadership innovations played a key role in India quickly achieving its objectives during Operation Sindoor, which has become a blueprint for India's deterrence operations across the border. You are leading the Indian Army at a time of great geopolitical tension and volatility in India's neighborhood. A modern general, you are promoting the use of big data analytics, artificial intelligence, and blockchain solutions in the Indian Army. A believer in not relying on foreign suppliers for national security, you are weaning the forces off imported weapons and equipment, and you are inducting locally made fighting and logistical hardware and software. You are ensuring that India's rise is secure and India can speak to the world from a position of strength. We look forward to hearing your talk on cross-domain hybrid leadership, essential for national growth and security. Many thanks for joining us today, sir, and a very warm welcome to you. I also welcome all the distinguished speakers, guests, and delegates, and friends to this festival of Indian management and leadership. I also welcome all the past presidents of AIMA, AIMA council members, AIMA office bearers who have joined us today in person or via live stream. India's armed forces are a prime example of India's efforts to reorganize, re-strategize, and modernize to get into a winning position. The forces are in the thick of the action, and sometimes literally, and everyone is looking at the Indian Army's leadership with admiration and trying to learn from its transformation. Cross-domain hybrid leadership for growth and security is a centerpiece of the Indian Army's capability, agility, and resilience. India's armed forces offer a great lesson to large organizations in integrating distinct divisions and operations. The Army, Air Force, and Navy have evolved as separate organizations based on where they operate, but the emergence of universal technologies has triggered efforts to make their organizations and operations seamless. I understand that there is serious consideration on creating common military stations and units for logistics, communication, and other support services. The armed forces are also working on realignment of command and corps within and across each other. This breaking of silos and demolition of turfs is something that Indian enterprises can learn from. General Dwivedi has declared his mission to transform the Army into a modern, agile, adaptive, technology-enabled, and self-reliant future-ready force, capable of deterring and winning wars in a multi-domain environment across the spectrum of operations. The unprecedented trend in Indian armed force leadership is the desire to have a greater role in the economy and to help the Indian Treasury direct billions of dollars from overseas suppliers to local companies. Successive army chiefs have committed themselves to the government's vision of making India Atmanirbhar and a developed economy by 2047. Creating a military-industrial complex has become the mission for the armed forces, the government, and the private sector. General Dwivedi has intensified the Army's efforts to work with industry to develop and make weapons and platforms, as well as equipments for its needs, which is a major change from the earlier era when Indian armed forces insisted on acquisitions of the latest arms and equipments available in the international market. India's arms and aerospace companies played an important role during Operation Sindoor, and the short war was a perfect showcase for Indian industry's capabilities of providing adequate and effective military systems to win a fight. With the support of the government and the armed forces, Indian industry is moving rapidly towards making the most of key weapons, platforms, and infrastructure. India's armed forces have set an example for growth through local sourcing and innovation. Thanks to the forces' support for local sourcing, India's indigenous defense production has risen to nearly 1.5 lakh crore rupees. The availability of a large buyer at home is allowing Indian defense companies to scale and become global suppliers. In fact, last year, Indian companies supplied over 24,000 crores of defense equipment internationally. The recent experience of the four-day offensive against Pakistan made the government announce more than 1 lakh crore of fresh investment for locally sourced arms and technology. That is a massive opportunity and responsibility for Indian suppliers. To learn more about this very important role played by the Indian Army in India today, I would now like to request General Dwivedi to tell us more about the Indian Army's aspirations for self-reliance and economic growth and to deliver his keynote address. Over to you, General Dwivedi.
Shri Nikhil Sawhney, past President and MD Dwivedi Turbines, Ms. Rekha Sethi, DG All India Management Association, distinguished guests, eminent personalities, members of AIMA, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, the members from the media. Actually, I was thinking early morning, I would be having approximately half of the hall full, so I should be able to prevail upon this speedy narrative and move ahead. But keeping in view the weight which is there in this hall, I think I'll have to be more deliberate. And even if shoot some more time, I think the organizers will accept it. So for me, it's a privilege as well as responsibility when it comes to this dais, because here the ideas are nurtured, debated, and distilled to shape the generation next of transformative leaders. So when I look at the previous leaders, it's gurus in all fields. Polity, Mr. Amit Shah, Nitin Gadkari, policies, Amitabh Kant, the Sherpa. Then when it comes to propulsion and pyrotechnics, we had Somnath ji. Then people's life, when we talk about, we have Shri Shri Ravi Shankar, Sadhguru ji, and we also have Padma Vibhushan, Narayan Murthy. What is common in all this? That army is dealing with all these people. We are this second largest and fourth most powerful army of the world. And we have been dealing with all these names which I have given out. And we draw energy and inspiration from all of them. When it comes to the human resources, we bank on Shri Shri Ravi Shankar and Sadhguru ji. When it comes to the technology, we bank on Narayan Murthy ji and Somnath and so on and so forth. And of course, for the strategic guidance, the polity is always there. What we need to understand also as the army is concerned, a commanding officer is everything within. That is the judiciary, legislative, and executive. And that is how in army it continues with the chief of army staff also. Means any power which you talk about is there with the army. And that is how we move ahead. And when it comes to our extended family, we look at serving their dependents, veterans, their dependents, 7 lakh widows. And when you combine all these things, this comes to approximately 1.3 crore. So army as such, when I look at, it is approximately 1% of the Indian population. That is how I look at. Now moving ahead, let's talk about the leader. And when I was in Somalia, since Dwivedi is a tongue-twisting name, so my colleagues from various countries used to call me Dwight. And if you know Dwight, it is Dwight Eisenhower. He's a very famous general of Second World War, who had great difficulty in handling Montgomery, but he's the only one who could handle it. And he said that the leadership is the art of getting someone else to do something you want done because he wants to do it. I'll say it again, the art of getting someone else to do something you want done because he wants to do it. And that is what a huge number, when you look at 12 lakhs of army, you'll find that it's not possible for me to control everyone. So there's a rhythm which always works. But let me put one thing at rest. Eisenhower also became president. I'm not looking at that side at all. So now moving ahead to Op Sindoor, it was amalgam of everything. We had soldier to various commanders. We had scientists on field, off field. We had policy makers to the extent that Union War Book was not invoked, but certain actions which were required to be taken were taken in a preemptive manner. Whether, let's say, the creek area, the command and control has to come under one head, the Coast Guard has to come under a particular entity, all these actions were taken immediately. Industrialists, certain equipment which was required, which was still in the trial stage, something which was still to be supplied, everything was moved as per the requirement. So it was a whole of nation approach which was there. The government agencies, the railways, civil aviation, there was no Union War Book invoked, but whatever was required to be moved, requests made and items moved. So I met one gentleman who was dealing with the logistics, national logistics. I can just say that wherever we went, everybody was saying, okay, what is to be done, by when it is to be done. That was the approach we had for Op Sindoor. If I can say that all the right boxes were ticked off Union War Book without invoking it. That is how we moved ahead. So if you look at the conflict today, Op Sindoor, Ukraine warfare, Iran warfare, Iran war, or Hamas, of course, it's an exception. It's a different kind of warfare, so we'll not talk about it. It's diffuse, dispersed, and pervasive. That is, it is not confined to the front lines. This time you saw, we did not know that where the missiles are landing, where the drones are there, and we also know what kind of cyber attacks were taking place. So it did not have any front line. It was not having any border, if I can say that. The actors which are there in today's battlefield include the militias. You have Wagner, and now you have a private army, which has also been now in Myanmar also 25% you can have. That also rule has been passed. Then you have the terrorist groups, whether it's LET and others like Hamas. Citizen soldiers, and Ukraine has promulgated this a lot. Merchant of technology, Starlink is one example. There are so many for merchants of technology when it comes to the war. When it comes to the domains, the three domains which are well known to you, sea, maritime, which has got, of course, the air above it, and then the maritime also. As for the air is concerned, it also has three layers. That is the brown or the littoral, then it has the blue air, and then the near space air. Then, of course, you have the land, which I shall talk about later. And then you have cyber, space, cognitive, and info. These domains are also there. Now, one thing which we have to understand that how every service looks at a particular USP. As far as the Air Force is concerned, it looks at technology as its USP. As far as Navy is concerned, it looks at platform as its USP. But when it comes to the Army, we look at human resource as its USP. What does it mean? If you take your mind back to the Ukraine warfare, that it was dealing with the all generations of warfare. You will see the photograph of the mule moving, and also there is a robo-mule moving. So that is the kind of a technology variation which was required, because a drone may find it not cost effective to hit at a mule. And if there is one robo-mule, he will have to think twice, because the drone will be much costlier, and should it be used or not. So whenever you do something, there is a counter or answer to that question. So as far as the land warfare is concerned, it deals with the 5 generations of warfare, which is not the case with anyone else. Because others may look at destruction as the only kind of action which they are required to do. But in case of land forces, in case of army, it is the eviction and occupation of the land which is important. When you go back to the Alaska conference which took place between the two premiers or the presidents, they just discussed how much land to exchange hands. So that is what, and in India, since we have the 2.5 front threat, which is well known to you, land will remain the currency of victory. So with that as a premise, let's see that what are the 5 generations and how the changes are coming up now. The first generation is the direct fire. Direct fire means rifle to laser weapon, which we are looking in the future. The R&D is going on, we are looking at the laser weapon, we are looking at autonomous weapons. So this is what as the first generation of the direct fire is concerned. When you look at the indirect fire, we have the precision RT which has been used from both the sides this time. We had long range rockets, missiles, loiter munition which was used effectively, the UAVs and UCAVs. As you are aware that from the Turkey and China UCAVs were used from the Pakistan side, and of course we are also getting the Reaper from US. Smart munition, because when you have the smart munition, the percentage of ammunition which is required to be used becomes 1/3. And this is where the research and development is required to be done. In Russia-Ukraine war also we saw that all the RT dumb bombs were basically converted to smart, because only two things are surviving in the Ukraine war as of today, is basically the drones and the artillery. Moving ahead, counter-US, that is the counter-UAV, counter-drone, that is something important. When it comes to the maneuver warfare, there's the third generation. We are looking at manned, unmanned teams of the tanks. We have talked about the FRCV, FICV, which we are looking at 2032 onwards, but we're also talking about the light tanks, because light tanks are the one which we'll be using in the northern front or in the high altitude. The decoys played a very important role in Op Sindoor. We are looking at in future also. Advanced materials, because depending on what kind of ammunition which is there, you need a counter by having a good, robust advanced material. Of course, we are also looking up in a big way is the new helicopters. We need a replacement for Cheetah Chetak. We are looking at in a big way, and I've also visited one of the companies when I went to foreign countries, and we have so many other options. Air defense and airspace management I've talked about. When it comes to the fifth generation, there's the hybrid. We are looking at counter-terrorist operations, and it's again a ratcheting effect. The terrorists have a different technology, we have to have an upgraded technology. You have seen 7th October what happened in Israel 2-3 years back. Then of course, cognitive warfare, info warfare, that's an ongoing thing. OSINT, we signed with IIT Guwahati and others also, with Delhi also. So, lot of information, we can get it from the OSINT, which military may kind of consider it to be a confidential or a restricted information. When it comes to the new domains, we have the space, satellite, pseudo-satellites, and AI and quantum technology, which I shall cover later. So if that be the case, we need something more for the human resource also. So we are looking at enhancing the physical and mental efficiency of a soldier, and also extend life of a soldier who's got injured in the battlefield. We have go, no-go tablets. We have now accelerated high-altitude acclimatization. And of course, we also need to have system to orchestrate this combined armed warfare of the 5 generations along with the other domains and principal actors, and we have to synergize this all together. Now moving on to the technology. If the technology is leapfrogging beyond the speed of Moore's law, Army can't handle it alone. It's just not possible. So we are looking at the Troika, and Troika comprises of academia, industry, and of course the military. All those who have read Unit X, you have realized that wherever the linkage and the synergy of this is written by Mr. Raj, it's about the American system of acquisition. And since Indian origin gentleman has written, that's why I recommend that people should read it. So wherever there is a synergy and the higher guidance is there, you will find that things will move very fast. And there will be an interactive session among the 3 agencies which I have talked about. And that is the future we are looking at. So these 3 proverbial horses must pull together for the chariot to have a fast and focused resultant vector. So let's see what's there in the kitty. Today, we have approximately 26,000 plus crores, which is there from the capital procurement, which is there with me. Approximately 60,000 crores in terms of revenue procurement, which I have. I can see some gentlemen who must be finding it difficult to understand the crores, but I am sure the neighbors can always explain that what is lakhs and crores means. So, and let me assure you that more money can be made available in case it's a Atmanirbhar approach. Means if it's a India-made equipment, money is no problem at all. But is the market ready to kind of produce that kind of item for the quality which is required in that time frame? Or it stops there or moves ahead from there? That's what we have to see. The projected defense spending every year from 2025 to 35 is approximately 3 lakh crores with at least 10% increase every year. I think this is enough to stimulate and catalyze the growth of a cross-domain Atmanirbhar ecosystem that synchronizes its effort to deliver real and cutting-edge solutions which go beyond short-term, keeping nose just above the water. So this is the kind of initiative we are looking at, that we don't have to be at the bottom just trying to float. No, we have to actually fly. And how we can fly? I think we have to hold each other's wings and move ahead. So our approach has been two kinds: Google approach and Apple approach. What it means? That we look for perfection, we keep researching, and we come to a GSQR, okay, this is what we want. And we are ready to accept initial versions which may be of a lower quality, but finally we need that. But when it comes to the war-winning factor, we have to be very clear, there are no runners-up in war. If there are no runners-up, means a benchmark has to be established, below that is just not accepted. The second is the Apple approach. Apple approach means that here is the technology, do you want to use it? And this is what we are looking at. In the market, there are so many technologies which are easily available. We can just moderate, modulate, change it little bit, and thereafter can have a military effectiveness. So there also, if it's an imported technology, you cannot modify, you cannot change it. There are IPR issues, there are software issues. But if it is your own, it is easier to change as per the local requirement. So these two approaches what we look at. And in this, of course, satellite, drone, counter-UAS, quantum, AI, so whatever research is going on in various fields will always have a dual use. We have always seen that. So what are we looking at? We are looking at, firstly, the collaborative approach is important and the trustworthy approach is important. So this troika we talked about must have a trust within themselves, and therefore it's a long-term relationship. Now when you have a long-term relationship, the bridge which is existing today, which was, if I can say that, a taboo till 2014, is the ex-servicemen and the veterans. Because they understand the military side and they are now understanding the industry side. So making both sides communicate, the ex-servicemen become a major bridge, and this is what we need to exploit. We are also looking at long-term association. So the strategic partnership is something which we are looking at. We are also looking at long-term visibility. Means it's our job to give you the long-term visibility of whatever our requirement is. And thereafter, should we change the goalposts? That I'll talk about it. And transparency in approach. It is very important to have transparency in approach so that the industry has a trust in the procurement procedures which is there. I talked about the goalposts, but let me tell you, the goalposts will keep changing. If I wanted something to fire at 100 kilometers, tomorrow it has to go to 300 kilometers. Because it is not only me, it is the adversary which is also enhancing its technology. As it is technology, his technology is enhancing, I need to completely make sure that my technological level is ready to beat its technologically impact. Here, Atmanirbharta becomes important. This time, now we are ready for accepting spiral development of equipment. Sambhav phone, you must be aware that Sambhav phone is the one which was very critical in Ops Sindoor. Because why? Because this was the phone which we are using in our command and communication. We are not using WhatsApp and others. But in one go only, a kind of a joint operational and intelligence picture was there with all the commanders based on having the same platform. But we are upgrading it to a now higher level. Similarly, software-defined radios. We are upgrading it with every time. Whatever we have today, we are upgrading it. So it's a spiral development of equipment. So military is supposed to do the hand-holding. Second is the spiral creation of the organization. So we're also doing that. Industry says, I'm not sure how much you're going to buy. So this time what we have done, we have created organizations. Equipment, we don't know from where will it come, but we created organization. You would have heard Rudra Brigade, Bhairav Battalion, that is Light Commando Battalion, Shaktiban Regiment of Artillery, EW Brigades, Aviation Brigades. So we have created all this structure and told to the complete industry that, okay, these are the structures which we have. Now these structures need to be filled in with the equipment. Initially, whatever industry can provide, we will use it. As and when it increases the capacity, we will improve it accordingly. For example, let me tell you, loiter munition. Loiter munition, presently we are looking at a range of 100 to 150 kilometers. But as the thing move ahead, we are looking at swarm drones or swarm lot of munition at the range of 750 kilometers. Missiles, we are presently looking at, let's say, a particular range, but finally we are looking at which is much beyond, or the nuclear missile range is what we are having. Rockets, today we are looking at, let's say, 70 kilometers, but finally we are looking at 300 kilometers of this. So, sky is the limit as far as aspirations are concerned. But can you provide it? Is it possible? That is what something which you need to look into. Now, coming on to the academia. As far as the academia is concerned, as of today, we have opened 4 technology cells in IITs, ISC, Bengaluru, etc., which is supposed to leverage the niche capability what we have. For example, ramjet technology we are looking at, advanced material what we are looking at, the water jet cutting technology what we are looking at. So, anything which is there in the market is we have a use for it. That is how we go about it. We have also established now Agni Shodh in IIT Madras. And that is any kind of research and development is required, please come there, because as we know that most of the research and development or the industries are in the south. So we are wanting there also our presence to be felt. We have 3 regional technology nodes also. But what we realize that it is very difficult to communicate with the military, whom to contact, whom to speak. So what we did, we made 16 clusters. These are the technology clusters. And we have the Army Design Bureau. Army Design Bureau is the one which is the single point contact for anything you want. But these 16 clusters also have a principal staff officer or lieutenant general. You connect with them, whether it's a research and development, supply of an equipment, trial of an equipment, anything you want, they will get it done. As you are aware, to handhold the industry, we are carrying out the trials and just telling the industry, yes, it passes. Even if you don't want it, we are ready to carry out the trials and give you that military certification so that you can carry out the export also. Moving ahead, as far as the industry is concerned, compendium of problem statements, that is called as CPDS, was released in Feb 2025 by the Raksha Mantri ji during our Aero Show. And compendium of technology challenges is also planned in near future. We also have declared a positive indigenous list. These are the items which have to be made in India, and that list is available in the media. And we are looking forward for everyone to come forward and give us ideas. 90% of ammunition has been indigenized. Special winter clothing has been completely indigenized. As you are aware that Northern Front is basically we are looking at super high altitude, and this super high altitude, the temperatures what we look at 12 to 13,000 doesn't work. And it does not match with Alaska also. Why? Because here the air rarity is there. The wind speeds are very high. Therefore, feels like temperatures are actually very, very low. Industry, research and development. This is something what we are looking at. And to handhold this, we have IDEX programs, technology demonstration programs, ATBs, and of course, research and development funds. So, starting from 27 crores to 30 crores to 300 crores, we have so many funds as far as the research and development is concerned because small players find it difficult, startups and MSMEs find it difficult to put in money for the research and development. But if they have an idea and if we want it, I can assure you that we should be able to take on. So therefore, I would urge industry to discover, develop and deliver. And when it comes to Atmanirbharta, what we need to sit together and make sure that the intent, synergy, the joint venture with the established overseas players. Coming on to the seed money, which we are ready to provide in so many cases. High risk investment, even consortium approach, because for example, let me tell you the light tank. Light tank is something, it may be difficult for one kind of a company only to take on. So the consortiums have been made. And these consortiums give them the capital, kind of a convergence of the technologies of various kind, and the co-production helps us in a big way. So, if I have to just summarize that what is the hybrid leader requirements at the strategic level vis-a-vis military and the industry or the management, I'll give few A's. The first one is audacity. That is the think big, visualize, and always make sure whatever you're doing, the second and third order effect is taken into consideration. The second is adaptability. Adaptability, that is the resilience which you require. Because when you go for the battle, after the first round, actually you don't know how the battle is going to change its course. It's something like a river in floods. So that is how we have to keep making sure that the distance at every place is as per your plan, or even if it is not as per your plan. So change has to be as per the progress of the battle. And cross-domain. When we talked about, a cyber domain should be able to impact the maneuver warfare and vice versa. And of course, if I can say that the ratcheting effect of technology need to be seen, because drone and counter drone, you will say that whatever drone you find, the counter drone technology will beat it. Therefore, you need a superior drone. Thereafter, you need a superior counter drone. So that is how the ratcheting effect of technology in adaptability factor we have to look into. The third thing is aura and accountability. It means your reputation counts. Long-term trust is something which is important. Rhythmic execution, it is again important, and unwritten communication at all levels. Means you are visible or not visible, but the ground soldier is able to understand what are you looking for. And that is what something which should happen in the big companies and industry also. Acceptance. Acceptance, a leader today has to be a minimalist. And all those leaders whom you actually look at as a role model, you'll find they generally follow the principle of minimalist. Minimalist does not mean that you should basically not use the facilities and other things. Minimalist means you should be able to take out time and use it for the constructive purpose. That's what is the main aim. And of course, soldier first approach. In our case, once the Jawan eats, then only we go for our food. And that is how we always follow wherever we are. And of course, the Gandhian approach, my life is my message. Your life, you're being closely watched, you're being emulated. So everywhere, the Gandhian message has to be visible. Micromanagement versus macromanagement. When you have these 6 layers, in army, we have 6 layers starting from chief of army staff to commanding officer. So micromanagement is just out of question. Macromanagement, conceptual guidance, and thereafter every level to be trained, and nudging wherever required, that should be carried out. Ability, of course, that is most important, professional competence, but in the sequence I am giving. So if you see, the ability comes in the 5th sequence. It does not come in the 1st sequence. Professional competence, continuous upgrade, and en masse upgradation of the people you have under command. That is important, and Factfulness is the book which is given out to the Hans Rosling, if I remember correctly, that only not the good ones have to be uplifted. If a large organization like army, you want everyone to be upgraded. Then, of course, ambidextrous in approach, that is jointness and integration. We have decade of transformation. So we have, I think, fingers everywhere, if I can say that. So in the decade of transformation, we are looking at jointness and integration with Navy, Air Force, and other domains. Modernization technology is an ongoing process. Restructuring, which I have just told you certain issues. Then, of course, human resource management. We have Agniveer, entry of women, and so on and so forth. There are thousands of issues the human resource are concerned. Like our USP is that. And to enhance their efficiency, system, processes, and functions have to be continuously reviewed and make sure that you are able to push the agenda in the correct time. Because for us, the time, space, and resources, the correct management is important. And in the lighter vein, anger management is also important. As the Chanakya diverged his anger in such a manner that we had Chandragupta. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir, for your address. Ladies and gentlemen, to mark the convention each year, AIMA takes out a special souvenir with interesting articles on management trends. May I request the dignitaries on the dais to please release the souvenir. Thank you all for a wonderful start to AIMA's 52nd National Management Convention. May I now request Mr. Sani to please take over.
Thank you. Thank you very much. General Dwivedi, thank you very much for your comprehensive speech on the state of the Indian Army, the role that it plays. We all as Indian citizens owe all the gratitude that we can to our armed services for what you do for us, for the security that you provide. And ladies and gentlemen, could I ask you again to please stand up and give an applause to the General on behalf of all of us for the service that the services do to the country and for the country. Thank you very much. General, you talked about the cross-domain linkages and leadership and how the different services have a different orientation towards the capabilities, technology, platforms, HR. But in the recent past several years, where we've seen different facets of war happening globally, how have you, from the armed services perspective and from the Army's perspective, viewed the changing benchmarks of what are the capabilities that are required? You talked about the changing benchmarks on technology, how 100 kilometers, the requirement may change to 300 kilometers. But in the capabilities that may be required by personnel, those would also be changing continuously. And you talked about agility. So if I could ask you, sir, if you could just delve a little bit more into how that change has happened and how we as industry can learn more from it, from the management style and the leadership that you have shown.
So what I take it that you're talking about, what are the changes which we are seeing in the present circumstances? If we need to look into that when Russia went in for war, we always thought that this war will last only for 10 days. Iran-Iraq war, when we saw it was there for approximately 10 years. But when it came to the Op Sindoor, we were not sure for how many days it will remain. And most of us were saying, why it's finished in a 4-day test match. So what it means, war is always unpredictable. We are not sure what kind of a psychological impact a particular issue would make. So I will put it, as far as we are concerned, we look at 3 aspects, that is force visualization, force protection, and the third one is force application. So we see that the force visualization which was done in the Russia-Ukraine war was maybe there was a miscalculation. What is important in this, that we need to understand that what is the technology which is there on the other side to sustain the war for a longer period. What it means that we should be able to make sure that we have enough to last for a longer war. Second thing is, in all these wars we have seen that what is impacting the David and Goliath system. That means low cost, high technology. If you have low cost, high technology, you will be able to beat back a superior adversary also. In all this, so the application when it comes to, I have explained you that we need this kind of application. Protection is a new thing because you should be able to take an onslaught of the enemy barrage and thereafter you should be able to come out and carry out the actions which are required to be done. So these 3, what I look at is the main thing where we need to work out. Now all this is only feasible because you'll find all these 3 can only be connected by the communication and cyber. These 2 things is something which play a constant role in the complete thing.
No, thank you very much. So you talked about low cost, high technology and the need for the Indian industrial ecosystem to help develop technologies which may be dual use for use, but not only in civilian matters, but also for the armed forces. But there is a winner-take-all mentality in terms of how procurement is done. How would that risk, and I understand that there's certain risk capital that the government and the armed forces are willing to put out to help incubate technologies, but how do you view that and how would you encourage industry here to help participate in this ecosystem, to help build our capabilities and infrastructure that may be required to create multiple different options for you?
So firstly, let me add, it's not winner, it winners. There are S. And how we have gone about it, that we have these startups, which we approach in a different manner. We have the MSMEs, which have got a guaranteed kind of orders, and we have rules and regulations about it. Then we have a big time players. So everywhere we make sure that minimum at least 3 agencies should be there or 3 suppliers should be there. Now what happens? When it is orders are given, we know since the industrial capability to produce is limited in the time frame what we require, we always split it between L1 and L2. But we also make sure that the military stamp of approval is given from L1 to L5, or whosoever passes the test of the quality assurance. So it means in the market, we have given the stamp of approval for those 5 players. And since 2 are only supplying to the army, others are there to supply to the state, to the government agencies, to the paramilitary forces, for export to the neighboring states, and also carry out research and development to provide a better product for the next time. So nobody is a winner in this. The person who's got a contract this time may not get it next time, because by the time the R&D on the other side has become better. So what happens? He is lost only on the cost. So if I can just assure you that as far as the big time players are concerned, it's not a one-time thing. They have to establish a big research and development, they have a production capacity, and they should have kind of a ability to draw the expertise from all over to make sure that they have the quality what is required.
Thank you very much, General. The recent changes in defense procurement have led to a great degree of visibility, much more than what was there in the past in terms of what industry may need to put up in order to be able to cater to the requirements of the armed forces and the government. Equally, research and development, so to reach the pinnacle of high technology, research and development has to keep pace. And the articulation of the requirements that we need from research and development is equally important as well. You talked about cyber, you talked about quantum, you talked about AI. But there will be also fundamental research into infrared and to spectrums of physics which are required to be able to take forward certain platforms. How is that government, armed forces to industry, so to academia, articulation of requirement happening, sir? If you could explain a little bit more about that and your views. Because we see industry collaborating quite well with government, and I think there's a lot of enthusiasm in participating in tenders. But how is our academic institutions keeping pace with that?
So coming on to the academic institutions, the biggest advantage what we have, that they being the government establishments, it becomes easier for us to collaborate with them. So whatever funds which we have, we don't have to go through, okay, out of which 3, please tell us who is going to give us the best result. So what happens, there is no gem we have to go through. We can connect with any academia directly, like especially the IITs, and it becomes easy for us to give them a fund. So not many places what we have done, we have a system about 65 to 95 MTech students which we have. These students, every year we send to this academia. We give them a problem statement and send out to this environment. We also assure them that minimum that approximately 27 crores in one go, we can give you subject to, if I can say that, spiral development or level-based development which is required. Then we have the nodals, in the sense those professors who are having expertise in that, but they do not have resources, they do not have ground to try it out. So we provide them the platform, we provide them the funds, and we provide them also the expertise in terms of students who can carry out research and development with them. So as of today, with every IIT what I have about 2 to 3 MOUs with every IIT on various issues which we are working out. And I told you the example of Sambhav, I told you the example of SDR, told you the example of Ramjet technology. All these essential technologies or niche capabilities what we require, we were working out with all those people. But it's not only ending there. We have the startups which provide us with some idea. They say, okay, this is what idea we have. Can you use it? I said, okay, let's sit around and let's see the Apple approach what you talked about. Okay, this is what is there. This is how I can utilize it. So I sit with him and make him develop in such a manner that it becomes of some military utility.